and you are very welcome. This is The Beautiful Truth on breakfornews.com with Fintan Dunn reporting. Hey folks, it's Donald Trump, President of the United States. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. How about you? Maybe you just feel confused, really, and I'm not surprised. In fact, I delayed producing this piece now on what's just happened until some of the fever and furore had died down, because you couldn't even think straight with the melee which erupted in media when Donald Trump was elected President of the United States by the American people by an extraordinarily narrow margin in an astonishing victory. And it's a victory for him, but it's a victory for us. Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump's going to save the world, but what I am saying is he has dethroned these people. Donald Trump has beheaded the New World Order. And the New World Order, and here they are, and they all work together. Every single one of these people is the same power structure which has been in power ever since the great dictator George Bush Sr. came to power. And he came to power in 1976, 77, when he became Director of Central Intelligence. Oh boy, power sits in the intelligence community, if you don't know that. Perhaps that's some of the reason why you're confused. And from that moment on, he has ruled until this guy has ended that entire crew. There they are. And the reason why that's extraordinarily good news is because, not just economically, in terms of how they've screwed you, but it's because these are the people who did this. You see? And I just say that again. These are the people who did this. That's why it's good news. These people here did this, and they did this, and they did this very recently. You see, there's no fucking stopping them, is there? As they spout peace and love and gay marriage and do this and this and this. Here they are. Now, I don't know which of them is most evil, but I tell you what, this guy doesn't come close. Let's get real here. And I'm going to go through some of the things that Donald Trump, the supreme opportunist who has come on the scene at a moment when this old order, you see, powerful and all as they have been, and they've been jerking my chain, your chain, everyone's chain for many, many years, powerful and all as they are, it's an old empire now, you see, goes all the way back to the mid-70s with George Bush Sr. And yes, it had its heyday as he came to power and as he started the whole ball rolling with Iraq War One. Then handing over to his own hand-picked successor, a stooge. You know, he's still in power when Bill Clinton comes in. So this guy, when he goes out of power, which he knows he has to do because he's smart, he doesn't want to be overtly in control of everything, just covertly. It'll do fine, thank you very much. And so Stooge Bill is lined up to take the reins when George Bush Sr. has to step aside. And of course, George Jr. is there to take over the reins on behalf of the Bush family again. Then, and this time, because they're pulling off this, which is a massive war crime, you don't want to get caught out. So they have two people, they have Obama and Clinton lined up as potential successors to George Bush. And both of them also work for Bush Sr. So you had to be very careful, because when you pull off something like this, you don't want to get caught. So, you want an arm lock on the political process. So there's no way you will ever be brought to account for that crime. No way. Because you have the successor, Obama, lined up. He's going to do 8 years. And then you're going to line up somebody else to do another 4-8 years. And guess what? Jeb Bush back in at the end of that, perhaps. You know, this is the game that these people have been playing. But like any order, as I say, over time, it starts to lose the vigor and lose the focus. All institutional structures, including the New World Order, suffer from this. And they have been suffering reversals. I've been charting them on breakfornews.com for quite some time. I couldn't resist this. Yeah, sorry about that. You see, Donald Trump is the only guy who actually looks, unretouched photo, he looks like he just fits perfectly on a Mad magazine cover without doing anything to him at all. Just pure Donald. The future belongs to the stupid. Well, I tell you what it does. Doesn't it just? Because sometimes the stupid can see things that the clever people can't see. So we're going to take a look, besides the historic issues that surround the 9/11 issue, we're going to take a look at how he's kicked a hole in political correctness, how he has redefined politics, and many other things. But, you know, he didn't do it alone. Indeed, that moment of weakness comes after Russia had finally managed to stand up to these people. And we know how that has panned out. And we have seen other instances where they have been challenged. So it's a combined effort from within and without, which has taken down the New World Order. And as I say, I'm not saying that Putin and Trump will save the world, but it's a little bit more subtle than that. It's actually a question that they're not on that inner cabal wavelength. You know, what we're seeing now is the end of this crew, and we're seeing a new orientation in politics back to normal politics. You just cannot compare what has gone before this crew, which has been all fake politics, marketing politics, focus group politics, propaganda politics, political correct politics, which has defined the entire landscape of politics. That's over. And Donald Trump is the one who's brought it to a conclusion. Now, is he perfect? You bet he's not. And I'm going to go into, the reasons why we have to, be aware as we move forward of what is going on here and the limitations of a Trump presidency. But by the same token, sometimes an entire order is so weak that a supreme opportunist can come in and can dethrone it. And he's just done that for everybody, for himself mostly, and his legacy, which he's always cherished, but also for everybody else. Because now the ice is cracked. At least we get movement again. And I'll go through some of the many things that are going to flow in positive terms from what Donald Trump has unleashed. So let's just look at some of the achievements, shall we say, as a political animal of Donald Trump and what he has done. Well, number one, he has kicked a hole in this crew, the New World Order. They're already going down geopolitically, but he has kicked a huge hole in the New World Order, because when you do not control the presidency of the United States, man, it's all over. The next thing he's done is he's destroyed the existing political correctness structure. And I'll look into the details of how he dealt with political correctness in terms of the election campaign. But instead of backing off in the face of political correctness, he doubled down and kicked a hole in it and punched his way through political correctness. Achievement number two. And many things will be free to be observed in new ways, not just the issues that have been hot button issues in this campaign. Many new flexibilities of thinking will emerge out of kicking a hole in political correctness. On either side of the political spectrum, the benefits flow. Third thing he has achieved, and there he is, by the way, with an LGBT flag. LGBT for Trump. Exactly. So some of the cliches don't quite fit, do they? But achievement number 3, he has rescued the GOP from political oblivion, which is where they were headed, because with an aging demographic, it was secret knowledge but never spoken that really the GOP were not going to win any more elections because the demographics were not in their favour. And the only way out of that was to reinvent what the GOP is. And he's just done that. And he has pulled the GOP out of oblivion. Now, you could say, that's a bad thing, dude. What are you saying? No, hold on a second. You need competition in ideas, and you need to reflect the political aspirations of the entire population in a political structure. So healthy politics has room for all shades of opinion. Let's just get that clear. And so I'm not going to dance on the grave of the GOP and think that that's going to lead to anything else other than totalitarianism, because that's what it will lead to. So let's get real here. I want functioning democratic structures, however flawed they are, rather than totalitarianism, which is what we've had up until the 8th of November 2016. So he achieved with the GOP, they had been so lost, the GOP, or off in these manufactured ideological issues like abortion, the abortion code, the gay marriage, dead end. These are dead end issues, which are relatively minor, blown up into huge things. The debt, the national debt, as if the government ever had to concern itself with printing pieces of paper. Of course it doesn't. But debt was blown up into a huge issue, saddling our generations with debt. By the way, Trump is the debt king. Trump knows that the way to deal with debt is you just restructure it with more debt. And when the new debt comes due, you restructure that too, forever. So he's not, in the end of the final analysis, going to be bound by these ideological constraints that certain conservative interests have been interested in pursuing. No, he just wants to get it done. And ideology will not stand in his way, fundamentally. So from that mire of useless rubbish about gay marriage and deficits, which the GOP was stuck in, he turned it into, jobs. Ordinary people, our people, not internationalism, the whole 9 yards. And reinvented the mission of the GOP and the small government focus, etc. Whether you like it or not, he's done it. And now we have functional politics again. But he's also done it to the Democrats, even if you don't realize that right now. Maybe you're seeing it starting to play out already. Of course it's playing out already. Because the schisms in the Democratic Party now will rip it apart in the same way as he has ripped apart the structures of the GOP. You see, once we get the fracture in the system and totalitarianism ends, once this pair of psychopaths are no longer running things, you get normal politics again. And this is what's about to break out, is that normal politics. I feel like that Monty Python thing where the guy is going, what have the Romans ever done for us? Okay, well, besides take down the New World Order, kick a hole in political correctness, restructure the GOP, and trigger the restructuring of the Democrats, what has Donald Trump ever done for us? Hit Big Pharma? Oh yeah, okay, hit Big Pharma, yeah, Obamacare, okay, yeah, well, okay, that is good, but besides, destroy the NWO, hit Big Pharma, what else? Military-industrial complex. Yeah, looks like there's changes underway there too. Donald's had a look at some of the books there. He figures there's trillions missing. And he wants to do something about that. There is an element within the US military structure And, I'll do for hardcore enthusiasts, an in-depth political analysis of all of this. But there are signs that some people from the Defense Intelligence Agency might find themselves running the Central Intelligence Agency. Talk about bringing it home. So if he really is doing that, and let's just add the CIA to that restructuring, so that would be a reassertion by, hardcore loyal military, a reassertion of the primacy of US interests, and a reassertion of the control of the CIA to be put underneath the democratic structure again and not outside of it, which is huge. We'll see. You will have noticed that Donald Trump is playing it really close. He's got his own family in the goddamn White House. That tells you the nest of vipers that he's now playing in. Once again, I'm not saying I love Donald Trump. I'm just describing what's going on so that you know what's going on. Okay? But in his modus operandi at the moment, he is surrounded by vipers of the highest order, and to restructure Washington would be quite a deal. Now, to his advantage, as we all know, he's so mobbed up it's unreal. He's had to deal with the mob, do deals with the mob, and I think that's been, and people say he doesn't have the experience. I think he couldn't get better experience than where Donald has been. He's dealt with the mafia, so dealing with the Washington mafia shouldn't be a problem. I don't think he'll have any problem dealing with that mafia. But that restructuring, which we're going to see, a reorientation towards value for money for US military, and I'm not saying he's going to dismantle the military-industrial complex, he's not, but it's going to sort of get normal again instead of what we have seen, where it has its proper role in a functioning state structure, period. He has ended the trade deals. He's ended the trade deals, the whole TTIP, TIP, that whole alphabet soup of bullshit, which the Obama administration was attempting to force down everybody's throats at the barrel of a gun which doesn't really fire bullets that well anymore, actually. That's all dead too. And he has kicked a hole in the political plan which was about to play out. The political plan that we were supposed to have, it all centred around the Brexit thing. And be careful of Nigel Farage, because he's not on the team, guys. But there you go. The whole Brexit thing was supposed to set us up for totalitarianism and a defence of the totalitarian structure as it is under pressure. You see, the New World Order has known it's losing. Hey, I'm tracking it on breakfornews.com since the economic structure imploded, and tracking their failure in Ukraine, their failure in Syria, their failure in the Turkey coup, which was a catastrophic error, and that's only very recently. So it's no surprise these people just simply haven't had the operational effectiveness that they've had previously. But that is their fate currently. And the Brexit thing was going to allow them to create a narrative. Now, it's all about narrative in politics. In social control, it's all about creating and holding the narrative. So the narrative was going to be that racism was going to rear its ugly head. Now, just in passing before getting into this, racism rearing its ugly head is all about immigration. Immigration is all about getting cheap labour into corporate benefit and undermining the labour rates in your own country to the detriment of existing people who live there. So no wonder it's a hot button issue, and no wonder this racism tag has been used by the corporate structure to render impossible opposition to the immigration agenda and the corporate benefits that flow out of it. Okay. So, nevertheless, they've put a lot of money and propaganda into this racism meme, and so they were going to portray what happened to the United Kingdom as an outbreak of racism, xenophobia, when in fact they orchestrated that, the New World Order, orchestrated the entire Brexit thing, and they also used hedge funds to change the betting odds in the markets, right? To channel money into the markets so as that it looked like there wasn't going to be a Brexit vote, because they didn't want the broad masses in the United Kingdom to realize they were about to get railroaded into a Brexit, right? So it was a very carefully contrived, very quick blitzkrieg campaign and a lot of propaganda to get a Brexit. The New World Order wanted that. It was not a surprise to anyone who's following. It wasn't a surprise when Brexit came through, because that's the game plan, is to get out of Europe if you can't control it. And they're losing control of Europe. They've known that for 8 years. They've known this. You know that in geopolitical structures, they've known they were losing control. This is why the Ukraine thing, in order to try and raise tensions in Europe, etc. But these were desperate acts of a system which was losing it and knew it was losing it, knew that socialism, in inverted commas, was about to fight back in Europe, and that neoliberalism was dead in the long run in Europe. So they needed to try and find a defense for that. And first thing was to make sure they hedged their bets and just get out of Europe, because, as I say, it's a rearguard action. They're just going to do the best they can, right? But essentially they got to get out because they can't take the risk of staying in. If it goes socialist and they stay in, they're stuck inside a socialist structure. As I say, socialism in inverted commas there. It's all propaganda-laden terminology. Nevertheless, the next phase was going to be United States, where they would use the Brexit issue of don't let xenophobia win, as if they deliberately used xenophobic memes to get out of Europe, right, as a deliberate tactic. But now they hold that up as an example to the American people to say to them, oh no, don't go down that road. Why? Because they don't want America going down that road. See, that's to set Hillary up, right? And that's why they love Donald Trump. The Clinton campaign loved Donald Trump. They thought they were going to just tear him apart and eat him up, because he started to say xenophobic shit. And they just put it straight away onto the mainstream media. You can always get yourself huge coverage if you give the mainstream media the feeding frenzy it seeks, right? But it's usually political suicide. Donald Trump's skill was to do that and yet survive the onslaught. So cover that another time. But that was going to be the meme in the United States, was that Hillary managed to hold back the tide of xenophobia. See? And then they would take the battle to Europe. And they would say to Europe, now you've already seen how the United Kingdom went xenophobic. Okay? And you've seen how our glorious Hillary has defended liberal values, neoliberal and financial engineering, in America. So in Europe, we'd like you to support your liberal parties. You see? So all of this dynamic has been safeguard the United Kingdom by getting it out of Europe, engineer the Brexit, use that as propaganda in the American election, and then use both of those events as propaganda in European elections to try and defend in Europe. That's the kind of shit that's really going on under the surface, guys and girls. But that's all over. And so the meme has to be adjusted, and you could see them adjusting instantly, right? Okay, hasn't worked out in the United States. Okay, now we use the US and the UK, and we say to Europe, oh my God, don't do that. So we will castigate this guy Trump, and the European electioneering is already running, folks. Merkel saying, well, we respect your victory, Mr. Trump, but as long as you share our values. You fascist. My jeez. I mean, I actually, it's amazing how dumb people can be. I suppose in the world in which many baby boomers grew up, the Republican Party was the party of war, and the Democrats or Labour parties were the party of anti-war. And so you supported these Labour parties. Has the penny dropped for any of them that Tony Blair, took the left into war? Have they realized that in fact that's exactly what the right and what George Bush, conceived, was that he could put in a stooge at the top of a left-wing party and he could do shit you'd never get away with if you were a right-wing party. because you're already inside the popular system. And you could propagandize your way into doing whatever you wanted to do. But they are so blind to that, because historically they just think they must be on the good guy's side. I actually heard some professor of microbiology say that Hillary Clinton wasn't in it for the ego. She just wanted to get into power to do what she could for people. This is the woman whose hands are dripping with the blood of Syrian fucking children. And this guy thinks she's not in it for the ego. Really, I'm sort of progressive in political orientation, in the sense that anarchistic and, an orientation like that. But you have to say, when I look at some of the people that I partly share pieces of their political ideology with, the liberals and the left, and the people who come out with those kinds of statements, and then who go out and protest in the street when Hillary loses, you have to say, how fucking stupid can you be? You really do. Is there something in the fact that it is the questioning of orthodoxy that's going on in the right of the political spectrum, and an inability to even see the fucking reality on the left? Isn't that weird? It shouldn't be like that, Left is supposed to be progressive. So, I don't know, maybe that's for another discussion as to how the left got that blind. But there you go. So what has Donald Trump ever done for us? Well, kicked a hole in the NWO, destroyed political correctness, regenerated the Democratic and Republican parties, damaged Big Pharma, triggered a process of restructuring of the military-industrial complex and the CIA, destroyed the trade deals, and completely disrupted the plan to try and retain control of Europe. It's just, I'm sure there's downsides, but show me the downsides. Yeah, there are. I mean, he is so tight with some Jewish money, But then, Donald plays people. That's what he does. And Donald has gone to the usual billionaire sources, Jewish billionaire sources of money, and this is where his Iran thing comes out of. Because it doesn't make sense. He's just saying this shit. He said that he's not going to fight with Russia, right? If he's not going to fight with Russia, Iran and Russia are allied in Syria and in the region. So he's not going to fight with Iran either. But to get the Jewish money, to get the Jewish money, you got to fight with Iran. They don't want to know you otherwise. So yeah, he's going to be big on the Iran issue until he gets himself nicely established in power, and he doesn't need some of these useful idiots, which he has used on the way to power. So, don't take everything that has come out of this guy's mouth as too seriously, but expect him to deliver on the substantive elements which he has laid out, because that is the game plan. There's nothing that's really going to impede that. So, astonishing achievements by Trump. But, not entirely unexpected. Here on the 1st of November in the forum on breakfornews.com, I was posting about a poll which had just come out from the Washington Post, and that's a week before the election. I said, if lack of enthusiasm for Hillary perseveres, it means lower turnout for her and she will lose. See the yellow arrow below. And there it is, a week before the election. The WikiLeaks factor had started to really kick in. Look at that dip. The blue line there that you see. Look at that dip in support for Clinton just coming up to the election. 30th of October is that data point there. And she's had a catastrophic slump in enthusiasm. And that's because the WikiLeaks factor was kicking in. Now, it was a very thin base that she was operating off. And that was right then. It got even worse. 4th of November, another post I did on the forum. just reproducing what Julian Assange in WikiLeaks was saying. And he came through in the end, didn't he? But I never really knew where Assange was coming from. Sometimes you don't know with operations for sure, because sometimes they use lost leader tactics. They'll participate in what seem to be actions that damage the establishment because those actions are deemed to probably going to happen anyway, and you might as well be in there, so you never know. But when it came down to it, WikiLeaks did terrific damage to Hillary, essentially saying Hillary was ISIS. I mean, how much more did you have to lay it out? And that was getting onto the internet, and that was getting through to Hillary supporters. That's why she was having that problem. And the problems, for me, became really manifest a day before the election. I posted some stuff about Trump can win and stuff about Trump can't win. But then I posted something about the 2 campaign videos that had been released on Sunday morning, 2 days before the vote was about to take place. And I took a look at Donald Trump's video, and it had 5 million views and 39,000 likes and 10,000 comments. Okay? This is now 2 days to go. And I took a look at the Tomorrow video from Hillary Clinton, and it had 24,000 views the same time, both released Sunday morning. Hillary doesn't even have as many views as Donald has likes. Donald has 39,000 likes. She doesn't even have that in views. He's got 5.2 million. That was then. Now his is at 8 million. Hers is at, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The other thing about Hillary, comments disabled. There were 147 comments, and at that point they shut down the comment system and removed your ability to see it. Meanwhile, comments were flowing on Donald Trump's video. 10,422 comments and rolling. Now, what did that tell me? It's all over, baby. Didn't really want to talk about those. Too big, this. I mean, if it didn't work out, boy, would everybody be disappointed if I'd said, hey, dudes, we're about to fucking make it and get rid of this crew. And it didn't work out that way. It was so close. 1/3% the other way, and Trump loses. Do you believe that? But it's actually true. Because the margins were so... She won the popular vote, right? The margins were so tight, but it was key states where just 10,000 here, 20,000 votes there, 30,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there. It was fucking razor thin shit in many cases. And we've gotten rid of them. Now that has implications for this and for the truth about what caused this, because that's too early on their game plan, right? Way too early. You see, she's supposed to have gotten in. Another 8 years of time they buy before anybody comes back to ask awkward questions about 9/11. And after her, Jeb would make an appearance. Another 8 years. This dynasty was supposed to roll on. But it's come off the rails now already, and they didn't even get Hillary in. It's come off the rails. And that has implications. I suppose one of the things that people don't realize that's been going on in the background is Donald Trump's address the 9/11 issue. He was pushed on the issue by the crowd at a meeting in Virginia, and he said he would reopen the 9/11 investigation if he got in. It came up in the crowd, and he was, forced to take on the issue. And he said, first of all, the original 9/11 investigation is a total mess and has to be reopened. How do 2 planes take out 3 buildings in the same day? I never got my head around the fact that nothing is mentioned about the destruction of Building 7 in the 585-page document, he explained, talking about World Trade Center 7, which collapsed during the attacks. So, and then just to give you the full story on that, he also took a crack at Jeb Bush's brother and former President George W. Bush, without mentioning his name, saying why didn't he go after the Saudis? Because all the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. So he's aware of the issues, And am I expecting a 9/11 investigation to be opened up in the morning? Not really, not really. But I do think it's perhaps interesting that the person who said those words is now President of the United States. If you bring forward a list, please, of other presidents of the United States who've said, I never got my head around the fact that nothing's mentioned about Building 7. Give me the list of them. I'd like to see the list. Right now, that list of people who've ever said anything in terms of I can't get my head around or don't understand or don't believe is Donald Trump. But he's got a job ahead of him. I'm not sure if he's interested. I don't really care if he's interested. I think it's up to us to make that kind of stuff happen. But he has got it all ahead of him. As Sputnik News, which is reasonably good at looking at things from an independent, i.e. Russian perspective, this can't end well. Serious conflict between Trump, CIA, almost inevitable. And the article, I'll link to it in the links to the video, in the links underneath the video here, links to all of this stuff, all material. And it's saying that, the intelligence community is not that keen on the arrival of Donald Trump on the scene and had been criticizing him. Here's one of the goons that Trump is hanging out with. But look, he needs enforcers. He's in the GOP. I would expect him to have the like of Giuliani around. He needs people who will be extremely loyal to Donald Trump only. And there are many opportunities. Hey, Sarah Palin's on board. What do I have to say? Sarah Palin, this is the woman who's keeping an eye on Vladimir Putin. And everything he's up to. And here she is actively on board and with Trump, who is best buds with Putin. But she doesn't seem to mind. It's all opportunism, and so is a lot of what you're seeing here, including Giuliani and others. I like, by the way he got rid of Chris Christie. You like that? Absolutely smart move. Smart move, and he put Pence in charge of running things. But I wouldn't trust Christie either. So, this guy ain't stupid. I'm trying to give you a professional evaluation of his abilities. Is all here. So that battle with the CIA looking to shape up very interestingly. And this is the guy who currently heads up the Defense Intelligence Agency, Michael Flynn, who is being mentioned as perhaps somebody that might be put in charge of the CIA. Jesus Christ, that would cause war. Anyway, internally. But there you go. Who knows what's about to happen? It's been a long, long time since 1976-77. And it's not that George Bush has got this huge apparatus in the CIA. No, there are links into the CIA, but most of the black intelligence which has been running things is external. He went into the CIA. He pulled out everybody he wanted, that all the amoral people that he could find in the CIA, and he blacked them, right? And he used them in black, and then he gave up as head of the CIA. He didn't fucking need it anymore because he had all the right people now in his own private intelligence operation. That's what's been going on. So that's why the need to do something about the CIA. So this is just to give you an idea of how serious these things may be getting for the existing establishment. Seismic that. But, it's important that we understand the context fully. Trump is the means at this moment in time to our end and not the end in itself. And I think Snowden, he summarizes this very well. And he spoke recently on these issues. Just have a listen to Snowden and the issue of putting too much faith in who happens to win elections.
The current president of the United States, President Barack Obama, campaigned on a platform of ending mass surveillance in the United States. He said no more warrantless wiretapping. He said he would investigate and end criminal activities that had occurred under the prior administration, in the Bush era. We're talking about torture. We're talking about extrajudicial killings. And we all put a lot of hope in him because of this. Not just people in my country, not just myself, but people in Europe and elsewhere around the world. It was a moment where we believed that because the right person got into office, everything would change. But unfortunately, once he took that office, we saw that he didn't actually fulfill those campaign promises. Guantanamo Bay, the secret prison in Cuba, which he had promised to close on the first day of his presidency, is still open and likely will be on the last day of his presidency. He embraced the policies of mass surveillance, extended them, and entrenched them. And this isn't to criticize this president particularly. This is not to say Obama is what we should be worried about. This is to talk about a broader point, which is we should be cautious about putting too much faith or fear in the work of elected officials. At the end of the day, this is just a president. If we want to build or live or enjoy the fruits of a better world, if we want to make sure that the rights that we have encoded into our laws are actually reliable, that we live with them and pass them to our children, this will never be the work of politicians. This can only be the work of the people, of the population, because politicians do not simply do what they think is best. They do what they think people want to hear. They do what they think will gain them support. And ultimately, if we want to see a change, we must force it through ourselves. If we want to have a better world, we can't hope for an Obama, and we should not fear a Donald Trump. Rather, we should build it ourselves.
And that's a damn good way of looking at it, isn't it? He's right. He's a very appropriate guy, I think, to draw to a conclusion this initial overview of what's just happened, because he comes from that same military background, which I feel is now reasserting itself in the United States. And Snowden's expression there of, if you look into his background, expression of that ethos is that it is a proper military ethos and not the rabid nonsense which has posed for a military ethos over the last 15 years and going back. So some good points there by Snowden. We have, in that context, seen the end of the cabal just a little too early for the proper cover-up of the 9/11 issue. And that's one of the most important things to flow out of this, I think. It has ended way too early. Something like 9/11, you want to cover it up for more than 15 years before, let's say, the existing structure cracks and questions get asked again. You need more like about 25 years. And they didn't get that, did they? It hasn't worked out like that. It's an issue that's the reason why I got involved in this in the first place. As an independent journalist, was reporting on the 9/11 issue and the people behind it from that day until this day. From 9/11, indeed, until 11/9/2016, when Donald Trump killed the cabal. And perhaps we will see some examination of the 9/11 issue. I certainly think that we should be focused on that, because there are opportunities that we haven't had which will now open up. That's full details on what did go on the day in a special mini site I put together on fintondunn.com. You'll find the link on the homepage, breakfornews.com, to the 9/11 Deja Vu investigation. Just put that into Google, 9/11 Deja Vu, you'll find this page. And it explains the who, the how, the why, the political ethos, and exactly how it was operationally done, how they pulled off 9/11. All of that is covered in there. So that's certainly something that's to the fore of my mind as Donald J. Trump ends the cabal. And we do remember, by the way, the never forget, the most important people, I suppose, who should never forget are those who know that the official truth is definitely far from the truth. That's the ones who shouldn't forget, because they hold that truth, and without their persistence, it is unlikely to come to light, no matter who is the current president of the United States. Okay, I reckon that about wraps it up for this initial look at Donald Trump. I'll be back with more on him, on other stuff as well, which I'm just dying to get to, which is non-political, as we await the politics to break out. Some interesting breakthroughs in other areas that I think you'll be interested in, about the who's, the how's, the why's and the where's of how we got here, and frontier science, where we just had some breakthroughs. I'll be getting to that too on video soon. And I do hope you can join me for that. But in the meantime, for breakfornews.com, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting.